On a cold New York City evening, 35-year-old Ethan Crowe, a successful businessman, admires the city from the 40th floor of his office. His company has just closed a deal worth millions, but his wife of 12 years, Lisa, has canceled the celebration because of work. Little does Ethan realize that her mysterious client has been destroying their perfect world for 3 months. One phone call will turn everything upside down: betrayal, revenge, and a shocking truth. The cold New York evening of April 6, 2025, draped the city in a shimmering blanket of lights. Ethan Crowe, a 35-year-old tech visionary and founder of Skyples, stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of his sleek office on the 40th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper. The skyline glittered below Times Square's neon glow, the distant silhouette of the Empire State Building, a view he'd earned through years of relentless ambition. Today, his company had sealed a $50 million deal, a game-changer that would catapult Skyples onto the global stage. He should have been elated, popping champagne with his team, but a quiet unease gnawed at him. Back home in their Upper East Side brownstone, his 10-year-old son Jacob was probably sprawled on the living room rug, assembling one of those intricate Lego sets Ethan had picked up from FAO Schwartz. The thought brought a faint smile to his lips. But then there was Lisa, his wife of 12 years. At 33, she was a marketing whiz, the kind of woman who could sell ice to a snowstorm. She called an hour ago, her voice clipped over the phone. "Sorry, Ethan, I've got a last-minute client meeting. Celebrate without me." He brushed it off. Lisa was as much a workaholic as he was. It's what made them click, what built their perfect little world. Jacob in a top-tier private school, weekends at their Hamptons beach house, summer trips to Italy or France. A well-oiled machine of family bliss. Yet, something felt off. It had been creeping in for months, subtle shifts he couldn't quite pin down. Lisa had been coming home later, her excuses piling up like unread emails. Client dinners, she'd say, or the campaign's a beast right now. Her phone, once left carelessly on the kitchen counter, now stayed glued to her hand, her flipped screen down on the table. And then there were the new dresses. Designer labels, Gucci, Prada, popping up in her closet. A little treat for myself, she'd laughed when he asked, twirling in a sleek black number that hugged her curves. Ethan had nodded, proud of her success, but a flicker of doubt sparked in his chest. He turned from the window, the city lights blurring into a kaleidoscope of color, and sank into his leather chair. The office was quiet now, the team gone home after the deal's signing. His phone buzzed, a text from Jacob. "Dad, when you coming home?" "I made a spaceship." Ethan grinned, typing back, "Soon, buddy. Save me a seat on that rocket." But as he hit send, his mind drifted to Lisa. She'd always been his rock, the one who'd stood by him when Skyples was just a scrappy startup in a Brooklyn loft. They built this life together. Why did it feel like she was slipping away? The first real hint came 3 months ago, though he hadn't seen it then. A new client had walked into Skyples' orbit. Kyle Reed, 38, the slick CEO of Technova, a rising star in the tech world. Charismatic, with a smile that could charm a room and a tailored suit that screamed old money, Kyle had pitched a partnership that promised big returns. Ethan had liked him as sharp, driven, a perfect fit. Lisa had been assigned to lead the marketing side of the deal. "Ethan, this is huge for me," she'd said over dinner one night, her hazel eyes sparkling. A real career booster. He'd kissed her forehead, proud as ever, oblivious to the storm brewing. Now, staring at the dark wood of his desk, Ethan replayed the last few weeks. Lisa's late nights had spiked since Kyle came on board. She'd started wearing more makeup, her perfume lingering in the air longer than usual. Last weekend, she'd missed Jacob's soccer game, first time ever claiming a strategy session ran late. Jacob had shrugged it off, but Ethan caught the disappointment in his son's voice. "Mom's always busy now, huh?" He'd ruffled Jacob's hair, promising ice cream to smooth it over, but the question stuck with him. Tonight was supposed to be different. The deal's success called for a family celebration, pizza, a movie, maybe a toast with Lisa over a glass of Pinot. Instead, he was alone in his office, the silence pressing in. He pulled up the family tracking app they'd installed after a friend's kid got lost at a mall last year. Lisa's dot blinked steadily at her office downtown, a few blocks from Skyples. Relief washed over him. Maybe she really was working. But as he zoomed in, the dot shifted slightly, nudging toward a trendy restaurant in SoHo. His stomach tightened. A glitch? Or something else? Ethan grabbed his coat, a sharp gray overcoat that matched the steel in his eyes, and headed for the elevator. He told himself he was overreacting. Lisa deserved his trust. But as the door slid shut, a memory flashed. Last week, he'd walked into the kitchen while she was texting, and she'd flipped her phone over so fast it nearly slid off the counter. "Just work stuff," she'd said, her cheeks flushing. He'd let it go then, but now it gnawed at him like a splinter. The elevator hummed downward, each floor ticking off like a countdown. Outside, the city buzzed, taxis honking, pedestrians hustling through the chill. Ethan climbed into his black Tesla Model X, the engine purring to life. He didn't know what he'd find, but he couldn't sit still anymore. As he pulled onto the street, his phone rang, Lisa's name on the screen. He hesitated, then answered. "Hey, Han." Her voice came through, smooth but rushed. "Meeting's wrapping up. I'll be home in an hour, okay?" "Yeah, sure," he said, keeping his tone light. "Take your time." "Love you," she added, almost too quickly. "Love you too." The call ended, and he stared at the dashboard, her still glowing in SoHo, not her office. His grip tightened on the wheel. One stop, he told himself, just to be sure. He turned toward the restaurant, the city lights streaking past like warning signals. Whatever lay ahead, Ethan knew one thing. The perfect life he'd built was starting to crack, and he was about to find out why. Ethan Crowe's Tesla glided through the neon-lit streets of SoHo, the hum of the engine a stark contrast to the chaos churning inside him. It was April 6th, 2025, just past 9 p.m., and the New York night pulsed with life. Hipsters spilling out of bars, couples laughing over cocktails. But Ethan's focus was singular, locked on the glowing dot of Lisa's location on his phone's tracking app. She'd said she was wrapping up a meeting, heading home soon. So why was her signal hovering over La Petite Bistro, a chic French spot known for its dim lighting and discreet booths? Doubt clawed at him, but he pushed it down. There had to be an explanation, maybe a client dinner, like she'd claimed. He parked a block away, the sleek black car blending into the shadows of a side street. The air bit at his face as he stepped out, pulling his gray overcoat tighter. The bistro's warm glow spilled onto the sidewalk, casting long shadows from the patrons inside. Ethan hesitated, his breath fogging in the chill. He wasn't the type to snoop. Trust had always been the bedrock of his marriage to Lisa. 12 years, a son, a life built brick by brick. But the flipped phones, the late nights, the new dresses, they'd stacked up like evidence in a case he didn't want to try. Through the fogged window, he scanned the room. Dark wood tables, flickering candles, a buzz of conversation. And then he saw her. Lisa sat in a corner booth, her blonde hair catching the light, a glass of red wine in her hand. She was laughing, her head tilted back in a way Ethan hadn't seen in months. Across from her sat Kyle Reed, Technova's golden boy, his tailored blazer slung over the chair, a smirk playing on his lips. Their hands weren't touching, but the space between them crackled with something Ethan couldn't ignore. His chest tightened, a mix of rage and disbelief surging through him. He pulled out his phone, hands trembling, and snapped a photo through the glass. The image was blurry, but unmistakable. Lisa's voice echoed in his head, "Just a meeting, Han." And it burned now, a lie laid bare. He could storm in, confront them, watch her stammer through excuses. But Ethan wasn't wired for chaos. He was a planner, a strategist. If this was what he feared, he'd need more than a grainy photo. He needed proof, ironclad, devastating proof. Back in the car, he dialed a number he hadn't used in years. Tom Wilson, a private investigator he'd hired once to vet a shady investor. Tom picked up on the second ring, his gravelly voice cutting through the static. "Ethan Crowe. Been a while. What's up?" "I need you to dig," Ethan said, his tone flat but edged with steel. "My wife. And a guy named Kyle Reed. Everything. Where they go, what they do." Discreetly. Tom didn't flinch. "Got it. Give me a week. You'll have what you need." "Make it 3 days," Ethan countered. "I'll pay double." A low whistle came through the line. "Consider it done." The call ended, and Ethan sat in the dark, staring at the bistro's glow. Lisa emerged 10 minutes later, Kyle at her side. They lingered by the curb, her hand brushing his arm as they laughed at something Ethan couldn't hear. A black SUV pulled up, Kyle's, no doubt, and she slid inside. The car vanished into the night, leaving Ethan alone with the weight of what he'd seen. Over the next 3 days, he played the part of the oblivious husband. Mornings with Jacob were a lifeline. Pancakes flipped on the griddle, chatter about school projects. "Dad, can we build a drone next?" Jacob asked, syrup dripping from his chin. Ethan forced a smile. You bet, buddy. Lisa floated through the routine, kissing his cheek before rushing out, her excuses as polished as ever. Big pitch today, she'd say, or Kyle's team needs revisions. Each word stung, but Ethan kept his mask on, waiting for Tom's call. It came on the third night, as he sat in his home office, the city skyline a muted glow beyond the window. Ethan, you sitting down? Tom's voice was grim. It's bad. Tell me, Ethan said, bracing himself. Lisa and Kyle read. They're not just working late. I've got photos, dinners at La Petite, a weekend trip to Miami last month. She told you it was a conference, right? Hotel receipts, too. The Ritz-Carlton, penthouse suite. And messages. She's sloppy, uses her work email sometimes. Can't wait to see you, my star, he writes. She calls him her escape. It's been going on 3 months. Ethan's vision blurred, the room tilting. He gripped the desk, forcing air into his lungs. Photos. Sending now, Tom said. There's more. Reed's got a past, shady deals, a startup that tanked under fraud allegations 5 years back. He's clean on paper now, but I'm digging deeper. The email pinged. Ethan opened it, and the screen filled with betrayal, Lisa and Kyle at a Miami beach bar. Her in a sundress he didn't recognize, his arm around her waist. Another shot, kissing in a car outside Skyple's building. The messages were worse, a gut punch in black and white. You make me feel alive again, she'd written. Ethan's a machine. Work, work, work. You're my spark. He shut the laptop, while rising in his throat. 12 years, reduced to this. Jacob's face flashed in his mind, those wide, trusting eyes. How could she? And Kyle smirking, charming Kyle, had played him for a fool, worming into his company, his life. Ethan's hands curled into fists, but he unclenched them. Anger wouldn't fix this. He needed a plan, something sharp and surgical, something that would hit them where it hurt most. That night, Lisa came home late, her perfume a stranger's scent. Rough day, she sighed, slipping off her heels. Kyle's driving me crazy with this campaign. Ethan looked at her, really looked, her flushed cheeks, the way she avoided his eyes. I bet, he said, voice steady. You should get some rest. She nodded, oblivious, and headed upstairs. Ethan stayed in the office, the city lights mocking him. He reopened the email, staring at the photo of them in Miami. A spark, she called it. Fine. He'd snuff it out, methodically, legally, and with a precision that would leave them reeling. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was personal. And Ethan Crowe didn't lose. The New York skyline shimmered beyond Ethan Crowe's office window, a constellation of ambition and betrayal. It was April 9th, 2025, 3 days after he'd seen Lisa and Kyle laughing in that SoHo bistro, 3 days since Tom Wilson's email had ripped his world apart. The photos, Lisa and Kyle's arms, their Miami escape, sat open on his laptop, a silent accusation he couldn't unsee. But Ethan didn't pace or shout. At 35, he built Skyples from a Brooklyn loft into a tech empire through one thing, control. And now, with his marriage crumbling, he'd wield that same precision to make them pay. He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight, and stared at the ceiling. Rage simmered, but he channeled it into something colder, sharper, a plan. Confronting Lisa would be too messy, too emotional. Kyle could talk his way out of a corner with that slick charm. No, this required strategy, a chess game where Ethan held all the pieces. They betrayed him, his wife of 12 years, the mother of his son, and a client he'd trusted with his company's future. He'd hit them where it hurt most, their careers, their reputations, their worlds. Tom's call came that morning, his voice a low rumble over the line. Got more on Reed, he said. He's leveraged to the hilt. Technova's drowning in loans he can't repay. Banks are sniffing around, but he's kept it quiet. And that fraud case 5 years ago? Buried, but not gone. I've got names, dates, enough to stir the pot. Perfect, Ethan replied, his tone ice cold. What about Lisa? She's careless, Tom said. Uses her Skyple's email for their little love notes. I hacked in. Nothing illegal, just a backdoor. She's got a meeting with him tonight, Ritz-Carlton downtown. Not business. Judging by the can't wait to feel you crap she sent. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he nodded to himself. Keep tracking. I need everything, times, places, proof. You got it, Tom said. What's the play? I'll let you know, Ethan said, hanging up. He didn't have the full picture yet, but the outlines were forming. Kyle's financial house of cards could collapse with a nudge. Ethan had friends in banking, old college buddies now calling shots at Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. Lisa's career, tied to Skyples, was even easier to unravel. But he wanted more than ruin. He wanted them exposed, stripped bare for the world to see. At home, he kept up the facade. Jacob bounded into the kitchen that evening, his sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. "Dad, check this out." He held up a drone sketch, all jagged lines and wild imagination. Ethan forced a grin, ruffling his son's dark hair. "That's a winner, buddy. We'll build it soon." Lisa breezed in, her perfume sharp and unfamiliar, a black dress clinging to her frame. "Heading out," she said, pecking Ethan's cheek. "Kyle's team needs a late-night brainstorm." "Sounds intense," Ethan said, his voice neutral. "Good luck." She flashed a smile, too bright, too practiced, and was gone. Ethan watched her taillights disappear down the street, then opened his laptop. Tom's latest update pinged. "Ritz-Carlton, 8:47 p.m. room 1204. She's in." A photo followed, Lisa stepping into the hotel elevator, Kyle's hand on her lower back. Ethan's stomach churned, but he pushed it down. This wasn't about feelings anymore. It was about justice. He dialed his CFO, Rachel Kim, a no-nonsense woman who'd been with Skyples since day one. "Ratch, I need a favor," he said. "Technova's contract, stall it. Tell their board we're auditing our end. Need more data. Make it sound routine." "On it," Rachel said, no questions asked. "Anything else?" "Yeah," Ethan added. "Lisa's department. Flag a security breach. Nothing big, just enough to start an internal review. Keep it quiet. Route it through HR." Rachel paused, then said, "You sure?" "That's her team." "I'm sure," he said, his voice flat. She didn't push. The call ended, and Ethan leaned back, the gears turning. Step 1. Choke Kyle's cash flow. Step 2. Plant doubt around Lisa. Step 3 would come later, public and final. The next day, he met Tom at a diner in Queens, a grimy spot far from Manhattan's prying eyes. Tom slid a folder across the table, photos, receipts, a USB drive. "Miami trip cost Reed 10 grand, Tom said, sipping black coffee. "Charged it to Technova sloppy. And here's the kicker. He's been skimming from his own company. Offshore accounts, Cayman Islands. Not enough to jail him yet, but enough to spook his investors." Ethan flipped through the folder, his expression unreadable. A photo caught his eye, Lisa and Kyle on a balcony, her head on his chest, the ocean sprawling behind them. "What about her?" he asked. "She's in deep," Tom said. "Thinks she's untouchable. Left her phone in a mall locker once. Tracked it myself. Probably met him off-grid. But she's not the mastermind. Reed's running the show." Ethan nodded, pocketing the USB. "Dig into those accounts. I want names, banks, leverage." Tom smirked. "You're scary when you're pissed, Crowe." "I'm not pissed," Ethan lied. "I'm focused." Back in his office, he called his banking contact, Mark Hensley, a VP at JP Morgan. "Mark, favor time," Ethan said. "Technova's loans, any chance you can tighten the screws?" Quietly. Mark chuckled. "For you?" "Sure. I'll flag their risk profile, slow the funding. They'll feel it by next week." "Thanks," Ethan said. "Oh, you won." He hung up, the plan solidifying. Kyle's empire would crumble under audits and frozen accounts. Lisa's job would slip away with a fabricated breach, nothing illegal, just corporate maneuvering. But the real blow would come later, at Skyples' gala, where he'd unveil their lies to the world. He pictured it, Kyle's smug face falling, Lisa's excuses dissolving in the spotlight. It wasn't enough to hurt them. They had to feel it. That night, Jacob's voice broke his reverie. "Dad, why's Mom always gone?" He stood in the office doorway, pajamas rumpled, eyes searching. Ethan closed the laptop, kneeling beside him. "Work's crazy for her, buddy. She'll be back soon." A half-truth, but it bought him time. He tucked Jacob in, reading a chapter of The Hobbit until the boy's breathing steadied. Downstairs, he poured a whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light. Lisa texted, "Staying late again. Don't wait up." He didn't reply. The folder sat on his desk, a ticking bomb. Ethan sipped his drink, staring at the photo of Lisa and Kyle. They thought they'd played him, used his trust, his company, his life. But they'd miscalculated. Ethan Crowe didn't break. He built. And now, he'd build their downfall, brick by calculated brick, until they had nothing left to stand on. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom glittered under crystal chandeliers on the night of April 20th, 2025, a Saturday bathed in New York's springtime glow. Skyples' annual gala drew the city's elite, tech moguls, Wall Street sharks, journalists with notepads poised. Ethan Crowe, 35, stood at the center of it all, impeccable in a Tom Ford tuxedo, his gray eyes scanning the room. The $50 million deal was the night's headline, but Ethan had another story to tell, one that would burn hotter than any business triumph. Tonight, Lisa and Kyle would face the music, and he'd be the one conducting. The past 2 weeks had been a masterclass in patience. Ethan had pulled every string, banks squeezed Technova's loans, Rachel flagged a breach in Lisa's department, and Tom unearthed a gold mine. Kyle's offshore accounts tied to shady deals. The IRS had sniffed around, and Technova's board was spooked. Lisa, oblivious, kept up her charade, late nights with clients, breezy lies to Ethan's face. He'd played along, even as her perfume lingered like a stranger's shadow in their home. Jacob's questions, "Where's Mom?" cut deeper each time, but Ethan stayed focused. This wasn't just revenge. It was justice. The gala buzzed with champagne flutes and small talk. Ethan took the stage, microphone in hand, the crowd hushing as his voice filled the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Skypulse stands for innovation, trust, and integrity, values we've built over a decade." His smile was practiced, but his pulse thrummed. "Tonight, we celebrate a milestone. But first, a lesson in loyalty." A murmur rippled through the guests. Ethan nodded to the AV tech, and the massive screen behind him flickered to life. The first image hit like a thunderclap, Lisa and Kyle at La Petite Bistro, her hand on his arm, both laughing. Gasps punctuated the silence. Another slide. Miami, the Ritz-Carlton balcony, her head on his chest. Then the emails, projected in stark black and white. "You're my escape, Kyle. Ethan's a machine." The room tilted into chaos. Whispers, wide eyes, phones snapping photos. Ethan's voice cut through. "This is Kyle Reed, CEO of Technova, a partner we trusted. And this," he gestured to Lisa, who just entered the hall, "is my wife, Lisa Crowe, head of our marketing team." She froze near the entrance, stunning in a black gown, Kyle's last gift. Ethan knew, her face draining of color. For 3 months, they've lied, used Skypulse as a playground for their affair. But that's not all. The screen shifted. Bank records, offshore accounts, Technova's crumbling finances. Mr. Reed's been skimming funds, dodging debts. The IRS caught wind his empire is a house of cards. Ethan's gaze locked on Kyle, who'd been ushered in by security, flanked by 2 plainclothes cops. No cuffs, yet, but his smirk was gone, replaced by a sheen of sweat. And Lisa? She leaked sensitive data, our data, to cover their tracks. HR's got the proof. The crowd erupted, shock, outrage, a few stifled laughs. Lisa stumbled forward, her heels clicking on the marble. "Ethan, please," her voice cracked, but he raised a hand, silencing her. "You don't get to speak. Not here." Kyle tried next, stepping toward the stage. "This is a setup." A cop grabbed his arm, murmuring something about pending charges. Ethan turned back to the audience. "I could have handled this quietly, divorce papers, a lawsuit. But betrayal like this? It deserves daylight. Let them face what they've done." The screen flashed a final image, a grainy shot of them kissing outside the Ritz, time-stamped from Tom's files. Journalists swarmed, cameras flashing. Lisa's shoulders shook, tears streaking her mascara, but Ethan felt no pity. Kyle muttered curses as the cops let him out, his fate sealed by audits and arrest warrants. The gala's festive air evaporated, replaced by a stunned hush. Ethan stepped off the stage, the crowd parting like a sea. Lisa caught his sleeve, her voice a whisper. "Ethan, I'm sorry. It was a mistake." A mistake. His tone was steel, low enough for only her to hear. 12 years, Jacob, our life, and you call it a mistake? You're done, Lisa. Job, marriage, all of it. He pulled free, leaving her stranded amid the stairs. Outside, he leaned against his Tesla, the night air sharp against his skin. Rachel approached, her expression tight. "You okay, boss?" "No," he admitted, staring at the hotel's glowing facade. "But it's over." "Not quite," she said, nodding toward a news van. "This hits the wires tonight. Technova's toast. Reed's facing fraud charges. Lisa's out at Skypulse, effective now. HR's drafting her termination." Ethan nodded, the weight settling in. He'd won cleanly, legally. Kyle's empire was rubble, Lisa's career, ashes. But the victory tasted hollow. He climbed into the car, the engine purring to life, and checked his phone. A voicemail from Jacob. "Dad, where are you?" "I made cookies with Grandma." His son's voice, bright and unbroken, pierced the numbness. Driving home, the city blurred past taxis, lights, lives untouched by his war. He'd exposed them, ruined them, but Jacob's face loomed in his mind. Why's Mom gone? He'd asked too many times. Ethan had no answer yet, only a vow. He'd shield his son from the wreckage. The gala had been his checkmate, a public execution of trust. But as the adrenaline faded, a question lingered: had he destroyed them, or himself? He pulled into the brownstone's garage, the cookie's faint vanilla scent greeting him as he stepped inside. Jacob raced over, flour-dusted and grinning. "Dad, try one." Ethan took a bite, the sweetness clashing with the bitterness in his throat. "Perfect, buddy," he said, pulling Jacob close. The war was won, but the cost was still unfolding, and he'd feel it most in the quiet moments, like this one, where Lisa's absence echoed loudest. The New York morning of May 21st, 2025, dawned crisp and quiet, a month since the Skyples Gala had turned Ethan Crowe's life into a headline. The Upper East Side brownstone felt emptier now, its high ceilings amplifying the silence where Lisa's laughter once bounced. Ethan, 35, stood at the kitchen counter, brewing coffee as the sun sliced through the blinds. The bitter aroma grounded him, a small anchor in a sea of change. His revenge had played out. Kyle Reed was behind bars, Lisa was gone, but the victory left a hollow ache he hadn't expected. The fallout had been swift and brutal. Kyle's arrest at the gala made national news. Technova CEO charged with fraud, screamed the headlines. The IRS and FBI unraveled his web, offshore accounts, embezzled funds, a $20 million hole in his company's books. Technova filed for bankruptcy within a week. It stopped plummeting to pennies. Kyle got 7 years in federal prison, his charm useless against a judge's gavel. Ethan's banking contacts had sealed the deal, tipping off regulators with Tom's evidence. It was clean, legal, and final. Lisa's collapse was quieter but no less complete. Skyples fired her the morning after the gala. The data breach Ethan planted, fabricated but convincing enough to justify it. Her name, once a rising star in marketing, became toxic. No firm in New York would touch her. She'd moved to Chicago, renting a studio apartment above a noisy diner where she now waited tables. Her designer dresses were sold off, swapped for an apron and a minimum wage grind. Ethan had frozen their joint accounts, leaving her just enough to scrape by, his last calculated jab. He'd won, but the cost lingered in Jacob's eyes. The 10-year-old sat at the table now, poking at a bowl of cereal, his usual chatter muted. "Dad, when's Mom coming back?" he asked, voice small. Ethan set the coffee down, kneeling beside him. "She's working far away, buddy. But she'll visit soon, I promise." It was a half-truth. Lisa had begged to see Jacob, and Ethan had relented, scheduling a supervised visit next week. Not for her, but for his son. The gala's aftermath had rippled through their lives. Jacob's teachers reported he'd grown quiet, his grades slipping. Ethan hired a therapist, a gentle woman who coaxed Jacob through the confusion. He misses her, she'd told Ethan. He doesn't understand why she's gone. Ethan didn't either, not fully. 12 years, a family, reduced to ashes over a fling with Kyle. He'd pored over Tom's files, searching for a reason, but found only Lisa's words. "You're my escape." Escape from what? Him? Their life? Work became his refuge. Skyples thrived, the $50 million deal cementing its rise. Ethan buried himself in meetings, code, and contracts, the hum of the office drowning out the silence at home. But late at night, alone with a whiskey, the weight crept in. He'd scroll through old photos, Jacob's first steps, Lisa's smile at their wedding, and wonder where it went wrong. Revenge had felt righteous, a cold fire in his veins, but now it was just embers, leaving him to sift through the wreckage. A letter arrived that week, Lisa's handwriting shaky on the envelope. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I was lost, stupid. Kyle was a mistake. I see that now. I just want Jacob to know I love him. Please don't shut me out." He stared at it, the words blurring. Part of him wanted to burn it, to erase her entirely. But Jacob's face stopped him. The boy deserved a mother, even a flawed one. Ethan didn't reply, but he filed the letter away, a crack in his armor he wasn't ready to admit. The first visit came on a Saturday, at a Brooklyn park under Ethan's watchful eye. Jacob sprinted to Lisa, his small arms wrapping around her. She knelt, tears streaming, her diner uniform peeking from under a worn coat. "I missed you, baby," she whispered. Jacob beamed, oblivious to the tension. Ethan stood back, arms crossed, his jaw tight. "1 hour," he said, voice clipped. Lisa nodded, wiping her eyes, and took Jacob to the swings. Watching them, Ethan felt a pang, not forgiveness, but something softer. For Jacob's sake, he'd bend. Kyle's fate faded from the spotlight. A brief article noted his sentencing, a footnote in the tech world's churn. His empire was dust, his name a cautionary tale. Lisa's life in Chicago was penance, long shifts, no glamour, a shadow of her past. Ethan had orchestrated it all, a conductor of ruin, but the music had stopped. Now, he faced the quiet aftermath, rebuilding with Jacob as his compass. One evening, Jacob climbed into Ethan's lap, a photo in hand. Lisa, Ethan, and baby Jacob, grinning on a beach. "Were we happy then?" he asked. Ethan swallowed, tracing the faded image. "Yeah, buddy, we were." He hugged Jacob tight, the boy's warmth a lifeline. "I love you, Dad," Jacob mumbled, drifting off. Ethan kissed his forehead, the words a balm to the scars. Skypulse soared, but Ethan shifted gears. He cut back late nights, took Jacob to soccer games, built that drone they'd sketched. Lisa's visits became routine, once a month, always supervised. She never asked for more, her apologies unspoken but etched in her tired eyes. Ethan didn't forgive, not yet, but he let her stay in Jacob's orbit. Revenge had been his weapon, sharp and sure, but it couldn't erase the past. Only time could. Standing at his office window, the city sprawling below, Ethan saw a new horizon. He destroyed 2 lives, lawfully and without regret, but the real victory wasn't in their fall. It was here, Jacob's laugh, a rebuilt trust, a life moving forward. Revenge had its price, steep and bitter, but love, he realized, was the stronger force. "We'll be okay," he whispered to the glass, and for the first time in months, he believed it.